What if I told you that there is actively two timelines that is simultaneously existing in the series right now? Now you might be thinking, yeah, it's the good future that Boruto and Koji is striving for, and the worst possible future, aka the planet's demise. If you said either of them, then you're not necessarily wrong, but when I say simultaneously, I mean timelines that are currently being created, manipulated, and altered. And the two timelines I'm talking about is Boruto's timeline and Kashin Koji's timeline. Now I caught your attention. Good. Before we get into the video though, I'm gonna need you all to hype the video. Let's try and get like 200,000 hype points on this one. And that's not even a lot of people. I'd say if we get 100 to 200 people to hype the video, we would definitely reach our goal, and then some. So to start off, I want to explain the two timelines that are being simultaneously created in the story. It all started in chapter 15. I probably went back to reference this chapter a lot on this channel, but if you're an active reoccurring viewer, you would know how I feel about this chapter. This chapter is where I feel everything took a turn because this was the first real timeline altering move from a character that allows us to see how it had an effect on the future. And it's also the first time Boruto went behind Koji's back and did something that would have an effect on the future without his supervision. Now, why did Boruto do this? Of course, we all know it was to prevent his death by Jura. You know, Kawaki coming through to save him at the last moment? Yeah, we know. But thinking deeper, why did he do this? I mean, there's always a risk of giving Kawaki power, right? He's actively trying to kill you, and Koji probably informed you that you'll have to fight him one-on-one sooner rather than later. So why make your job harder? Why go out your way to strengthen the guy who made your life a living hell? It's very simple. Boruto is creating another timeline himself, a timeline separate from Kashin Koji's timeline. You see, throughout Koji and Boruto's conversation, he told him various types of information regarding the future. This information includes when he was supposed to die, who killed him, and what happened in the result of his death. And as stated by Koji, in most timelines, what follows Boruto's death is pretty consistent. Kawaki gets devoured. So throughout the time skip, Koji has been telling Boruto things about the future, good things and not so good things. For example, Koji just stated to Inojin that there lies a future where he develops a jutsu to seek vengeance for Himawari. So what did this mean? This means there's literally a timeline where Himawari dies and probably ends up getting devoured by Jura. Telling Boruto this, it had him thinking on potential ways he can avoid this future based on the knowledge that Koji was telling him. And I know what many of you could be thinking right now. Why doesn't Boruto just follow Kashin Koji's lead in saving the future? I mean, he's the one that could see into the future right now anyway, right? So why stray from his ideals, how he envisions the future? Well, that could possibly lie in the fact that Boruto has never truly trusted Koji with this job. For another example, let's look at this scene from chapter 13. Like I stated earlier, Koji said that what follows Boruto's death is pretty consistent. Kawaki gets devoured and the planet dies. And after that, Boruto said to Koji that there's no way he would agree to a future that involves killing Kawaki. And when he said that, Koji gave a straight and unamused face, almost like he didn't believe Boruto's words, or perhaps he didn't agree about not killing Kawaki. The cold hard truth is, Koji's mission is to save the future at any cost. Whatever may come from it, it has to be done. Even killing an innocent person in the process, as he let Yodo die in order to have Sarada awaken her Mangekyo Sharingan. So like I said several times before, he has no problem taking someone out if he feels like it could raise the chances of the future being saved. And as it pertains to Kawaki, it definitely does make sense to kill Kawaki if almost in every future he ends up getting devoured if Boruto does in fact die. So I wouldn't be surprised if Koji brought this up as an option to Boruto, and even though he declined the offer, Boruto still is skeptical of him. Because if he's willing to sacrifice Kawaki and now Yodo, what makes you think Himawari's safe? What makes you think Sumere's safe? He already tried to take out Konohamaru and sacrifice him to Matsuri. But now look, now that Konohamaru and Kawaki survived, a plethora of new timelines became visible for Koji. So that just proves that not every choice Koji makes is the quote-unquote best for the future. In Boruto, through years of gaining intelligence and maturing not only physically, but mentally, he came to the conclusion that it's not wise to leave everything up to Koji. because if left up to him, although he'll guide the timeline to a future where the planet is saved, it won't satisfy Boruto unless his friends and family survive. So this is where Boruto first decided to take initiative and create his own ideal timeline that he would be happy with. He already got years worth of information to make it happen, and now it's time to execute. What at first seemed like a snobby teenager just being rebellious is actually a hard-fought effort to influence the timeline a different direction than Koji is guiding it. Let's talk about the mission in Sunagakure real quick. I want to visually show and explain to you both timelines, and for simplicity reasons, we'll refer to both timelines as either Boruto's timeline or Koji's timeline. So in Koji's timeline, he was going to keep Boruto hidden away for the entire time Sarada and the rest were fighting in Sunagakure. In this future, Jura doesn't appear. The only threats is Ryu and Matsuri. So at first, the timeline goes as shows. Yodo dies, which causes Sarada to awaken or reawaken her mangekyo. This of course ends up being the reason why Ryu was defeated. Now on the other hand, Matsuri was going to kill Konohamaru. At this point, Sarada was extremely exhausted to the point of passing out. But the orders were to rendezvous with Konohamaru once they defeated Ryu. So then, it makes sense that Mitsuki would be the one to destroy Matsuri for good. She was already greatly mentally nerfed to the point where she couldn't even think straight. She even forgot she could regenerate herself. So at this point, it was calculated that Mitsuki would be able to handle her. This future, even though it sacrifices multiple people, Koji's seen it as the safest option because first and foremost, it keeps Jura out of the fight and away from Boruto. Now, if Boruto just sat quietly and just obeyed Koji's wishes, then Konohamaru would have been sacrificed for this future to manifest. This is why he feels the need to create his own timeline. Even though Boruto's future yields the same result as Koji's, this future is considerably better than the other, simply because you save a life. Because of Konohamaru's survival, we now have a future where Konohamaru is about to join the singularities of fate and help them protect Konoha from the shadows, and many more futures coming soon in the story. Futures that wouldn't be accessible if Konohamaru was killed off. Now, to see how this timeline came into fruition, like I said, we gotta go back to chapter 15. Because Koji seen Kawaki as a liability that was inevitably going to be devoured by Ten Tails sooner or later. Boruto indirectly made Kawaki stronger, so the chances of that happening would greatly decrease. And not only did he make him stronger, he knew about the mission in Sunagakure and informed Kawaki about it. So from the jump, Boruto been planning to crash the mission. He knew Koji would try something snaky like trying to sacrifice one of his friends to achieve a better future. So that's why he was already planning for a way to get him and his friends out that situation as soon as he felt like it was time to intervene. All Boruto was waiting for was the right time to step in, and the rest is history. At first, Boruto was going to jump in as soon as Ada said that it's still too early to tell whether Sarada and the rest can handle Ryu, but Koji urged him to relax because it was too early. And I agree with Koji here. It was technically too early, because let's say he did go to Sunagakure here. What would come of it? More pain and destruction? Because you automatically summon Jura there, and Ryu and Matsuri is still alive. So neither Shinki nor Moegi would get saved, and now more casualties will surface because of Jura's arrival. So that's very smart of Boruto to see that his original time wasn't the best time to jump in. It was actually when Ryu was defeated and Matsuri was basically one shot. And we can see from this action, like I said, it ended up saving Konohamaru and opening up numerous of new timelines that could increase the chances of the planet's survival. This option wouldn't be available for Boruto unless he told Kawaki about his limiters, in which he did. So even before this, Boruto took steps to change the timeline so he can do what he did in Sunagakure. So boom, Kawaki arrives and saves Boruto and the planet from the worst possible future. Koji says he never seen this order of events before. He never even imagined Kawaki's involvement. He never seen it because he never wanted to do it. Koji never wanted Kawaki to get stronger. If Kawaki was going to come to terms that he had limiters on, it was going to be because he figured it out, and not anyone else. Koji originally was going to find a way to get rid of the Shinju while also keeping Boruto safe and keeping him stronger than Kawaki for their inevitable final battle. But this future will most likely have a lot of unnecessary sacrifices. But, I mean, technically it would be the safest option. Now, Boruto's timeline is a bit more risk heavy, but it yields high rewards because it keeps more people alive. So if this timeline is executed correctly, you get another set of timelines that could end up increasing the odds of the planet's safety. But it'll probably be harder to pull off, especially if Kawaki's going to be almost several times stronger than what he's supposed to be in the final battle. So Boruto's journey is harder, but it'll feel more satisfying to him if it gets pulled off because nobody has to needlessly die for him. He had to fight Juro one-on-one and survive long enough for Kawaki to arrive. Then he would need Kawaki to survive long enough to get everyone out of Sunagakure, something Koji forbid because of the great risk. One slip up and that's the end of the planet for good. No going back. So tell me right now, what future would you prefer? Let me hear your answers in the comment section below. Kashin Koji's low risk, low reward timeline, or Boruto's high risk, high reward timeline. So as you can see, these are the two timelines that are constantly at war with each other. And don't get the wrong idea, even though Boruto's future worked out here, don't think it's always gonna work out. Because just like how Koji misreads things and sometimes approaches situations with mediocre judgment, Boruto can do the same. And as it stands, there is even more changes coming to the timeline because Boruto, even now, is making new changes to the future. And these changes are most likely not known by Koji, meaning Boruto could do something detrimental to screw up the future that Koji had envisioned. Basically, because Boruto went to go do his own thing arbitrarily, it could lead to something really bad happening. So in the story right now, when Koji was explaining what to do when Mamushi arrives to Konoha, he was trying to arrange order for a certain timeline to play out. A timeline where everybody is prepared for the upcoming attack and well informed, which will make the fight against Mamushi a breeze. But Boruto on the other hand has other plans. We look at the most recent chapter of Boruto 2 Vortex, and it seems that Boruto is yet again doing something similar to what he did back in chapter 15. But this time, the one that's going to be involved is Sumire. By telling Sumire of certain technology that she discovered in the future, it opens up more possible futures. And let me just say, I don't think Koji knows that Boruto is doing this. Just like his conversation with Kawaki. If Koji doesn't know, then that means Boruto plans to do something that goes against Koji's direct plans. Because deep down in his heart, he must feel that his way of influencing the timeline is somewhat better than what Koji is doing. And it all starts here, powering up his sword using this technology. There has to be a reason why Koji told Boruto of this technology that Sumire discovered, but we don't know what they plan to use it for prior to Boruto telling Sumire to fix his sword using this technology. And also, by giving it to her so early, it kind of gives her more time to build on it and possibly discover new secrets about this new never before seen technology. Time she wouldn't have otherwise in the other timeline because of the planet dying. So now currently in the story, we can see how each action done by Boruto and Kashin Koji is changing the future. By Koji telling everyone about Mamushi's abilities and traits, it'll make the fight that much easier. By telling Inojin about the timeline where Himawari dies, it'll entice him or influence him to learn the jutsu faster to save her life, which then could cause another timeline in where we see Himawari and Inojin fighting against Mamushi. And by Boruto telling Kawaki about his power, it's not only making Kawaki undoubtedly stronger than Boruto, it's also amplifying Kawaki's innermost insecurity, powerlessness. And this shows because he's asking a model for even more power to take down Juro. You give someone a taste of something they like, and they're gonna want more. In Kawaki's case, he wants too much of it. It's to the point where it's kind of getting unhealthy. Boruto created this current Kawaki with his own actions. I mean, he always wanted to protect Naruto. That never changed. But now Boruto introduced a way for Kawaki to gain power, which directly played a role into him developing this new power-hungry personality. And now, since we see how Kawaki's acting, this scene with Sumire interacting with Boruto doesn't seem so out of the ordinary. Boruto is aware of the changes he made to the timeline. He knows the path he's taking and what it can cause. And no matter what he does, one future will not change. Him and Kawaki clashing heads. Therefore, if he made Kawaki stronger, all Boruto would have to do is get stronger than him, or at least match his power. That's exactly what he's doing right now. Asking Momoshiki for power, using never before seen technology to make himself and his sword stronger. Do you see it now? It's not only to take care of the Shinju, is to prepare himself for the outcome to this possible future. A future where he will have to stop Kawaki, who will become a power-hungry apostle of destruction. You see, Boruto is setting all of this up right before our very eyes. This technology that Boruto gave Sumire is technology based on Otsutsuki data. Given Boruto's Otsutsuki connection and the fact that he has access to the Karma Seal, the power that makes the most sense for his sword is to be able to exploit or improve the synergy between his blade and his Otsutsuki powers. And through this connection, the blade can act as an extension of himself as an Otsutsuki other than a regular blade. Like maybe the blade becomes synchronized with the Karma, so when he activates the Karma, the sword synchronizes with it, channeling the same high density godlike chakra, which would not only reinforce the sword even more, but it would make the swings more potent and effective. Since Boruto has a formal agreement with Momoshiki, we gotta think about Boruto actually using the Karma in battle now. Boruto can use the Karma right now, without the threat of Momoshiki taking over his body. So we gotta ask ourselves, what can the sword be turned into that will amplify Boruto's Otsutsuki power the most? And what would that entail? Now that I'm thinking about it, it can even become a living construct in a sense. The sword can become attuned to Boruto's life force, which basically feeds off his chakra to repair itself or evolve. Therefore, you wouldn't constantly need to siphon chakra through the blade to keep it from breaking. It would automatically do it. All this is tied into Boruto's new agreement with Momoshiki to use his power. That's why I'm so confident that Boruto changed the timeline so he can use this ancient Otsutsuki technology. Technology that was probably made from his own DNA in another timeline, especially if Sumire was the one to develop it. Now the only remaining question we gotta ask ourselves is gonna be, is this timeline better than Kashin Koji's? It's clear the direction that Koji is going and Boruto is going is very different. One is clearly more dangerous and risky than the other, but that timeline is more rewarding if pulled off. Which one would you prefer? Which one would you like to see more? Boruto or Kashin Koji's? And you know what? Let me know what you think will be the result of Boruto's timeline in comparison to Koji's timeline. But anyway, that's where I'ma leave it. I like leaving my videos off where it gives room for more speculation because it makes for good engagement and conversation in the comment section below. So let me know what you think. And remember, if you enjoyed this video and wouldn't mind seeing more like this in the near future, go ahead and like the video, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you know whenever I upload or go live for chapter spoilers. And until my next one, I'll see you boys and girls later. And I'm out. Peace.